22 years at Unilever. You write the greatest ode ever that any employee can. The CEO of factory, Unilever. And then all of a sudden you quit. Straightforward question. Did you think your job was done at Unilever?
Yeah, no, I mean, the reason I quit, by the way, many of these questions he sent me in advance, so it's...
Sudhir, you're not supposed to tell them that.
So I've had time to think about it. The reason I quit HUL was, they wanted me to go to London. Generally, I wanted to stay here, so I quit.
That's it. Nice. Sudhir, you've been a very, very, very active brand manager. Do you miss brand management? And I'm not going to let you get away with, a CEO does a lot of brand management as well. I'm sure there is a different job profile where you currently are. Do you miss real active brand management? I also know your in-house creative team is here and they won't judge you for continuing to be in active brand management, but do you miss it?
I mean, you've kind of taken the answer from my mouth, which is, you see, the thing in the CEO's role, honestly, is, and I kind of realized that is, you're really the voice of the consumer in the organization. So, I don't know about brand management, but I like to look at my diary and see how much time I'm spending bringing consumers into the organization. Some part of it is brand. I do miss, I must say, active role in advertising and active role in production. So I had taken a rule, I had taken a vow, I'm not attending a PPM. Vinil is here somewhere. Vinil then called these guys and said, Sudhir has to come to the PPM or I'm not doing the film. So it was the only PPM I've done in the last 3 years. But I do miss PPMs, and but that I said it's not fair. I mean, I don't want to do it. Somebody else has to. But I certainly spend a lot of my time thinking about brands, thinking about consumers, seeing from the vantage point that I have, because I've grown up in brands and marketing. I mean, and I'll tell you, kind of one of the big beliefs I've had in 25 years is advertising works. That's my broad
baby,
big belief. And you have to put your money where your mouth is. So when I joined GCPL, we were spending 300 crores on advertising. We were the 15th biggest advertiser in India. But last year we've spent more than 1,000 crores, and we're the third biggest advertiser in India. So in 2 years, we've added 650. That's what I can do, right? Because I guess. So I don't know if I miss. Yeah, I miss advertising.
Yeah,
I miss advertising.
Let's have some fun. I'm speaking on behalf of maybe 95% of the people here, especially directors. Before a film presentation, the typical banter, and I'm paraphrasing, please, it's pretty much the same. Before a final client presentation, the typical conversation is, oh fuck, this client is going to butcher my edit, they're going to hate it, they're going to want more product window, they're going to want more, etc., etc., etc. Right? You've heard this stuff before? You kind of sort of know it, right? What I want to know is, what's the banter that happens with you and your team of brand managers? How do y'all look at a director and a producer, strutting in with this edit that they want to show you? What are you thinking?
Most of the time, at least with experience, well before the director comes in, I have a very good sense of how the film's going to be. I have a really good sense at the PPM itself. Is this film going to work out or not? And very rarely have I found, at least with experience, that being different. So, and if a PPM really doesn't work out, many times I've changed the director. We've lost 1 crore, 2 crores, because I know that when you have the PPM, and you're right, I don't like to look at references and so on and so forth. So most of the time when we go to see a film, I feel, like it's not the film that's important to me, it's the conversation that I have with the director at the PPM, or at least I used to. I don't do it much anymore. I miss it. Thanks to Vinil, once in a while, whenever he does a film for us, I go there. But To me, the more important thing is not seeing the film. It is the conversation that we have with the director at the PPM, which is pretty much the only time we meet the director.
Sudhir, you have a conversation. You've always been, it's fairly well documented. Your colleagues at Unilever still talk about it every day. You're a very instinctive marketer, you're an instinctive brand builder. There has to have been, or I'm being presumptuous, so I apologize, but there has to have been a case where you knew it. You said, this is going to be sensational. This is going to work. Was there a case where you were so sure in your gut, but it didn't work?
Yeah, I think there is. And maybe you can play the film. Prasoon made it for us. He was here. It was a film
I warned you guys.
I must say I really loved it. I still really love it. But try as we did, it didn't work. I mean, pretty much the only film that I really regret, and we ran it. But I have to say, not because I didn't know Prasoon was here, but it's my, I didn't know he was going to be here. But it's my abiding regret that, we spent money, we spent a lot of time, but for some reason, it didn't work with consumers.
If anybody was to Google your thoughts in the last 18 months, I think the one thing that would stand out for a lot of us here as the producer community would be the fact that you decided to take a very bold step and set up in-house creative services.
I certainly feel, one of the things that I do feel versus the past, and maybe we can discuss why that's the case, I certainly feel that, I think one is we're lucky in Bombay to have probably one of the world's best creative centers. So it's really easy, and it's great to get great directors, we have the Lightbox team here. So it's really easy to get great creative talent. So that itself is quite sort of easy. But I do feel, I don't know what it is, you guys know better. The kind of passion that advertising folks had with brands, I feel has been lost with time. So and maybe we'll move back in some time to an agency. So the title you've said is the agency model. I don't know if the agency model is broken or not. But I certainly, and I've worked with Arun is here on Surf. I worked with Harshad and Kainas and Kinu and Prasoon and so many people here on brands. It's really hard to get single-minded passion for the brands. Like when I started in marketing, the agency folks were far more passionate about the brands than the brand managers were. I don't think that's true. Or maybe it's just I don't think it's true in general. I think there are specific examples of people who are really passionate about brands. So I guess on hindsight, what I was missing was passion, and then this solution evolved, and then one fine day it kind of keeps evolving, and then you say, okay, now why not do it yourself? I mean, ultimately, what is an agency? It's 4 or 5 really good guys in the room thinking all the time about the brand and doing something about it, right? So that's kind of the ball.
I mean, there's a cross question there, but I'm not going to ask you what an agency is. But Sudhir, I do want to ask you a question, because this is a trend. It's a trend in a lot of very mature markets. This is a trend, and there are, I already know, I don't need to name them, but there are a lot of production companies that are working direct client, right? They're getting a brief because they know the tone of voice. They have worked on a lot of those films, etc. Right? You know it, I know it, we know it. It's a trend, right? But the question that I want to ask you is, what do you think are the watch-outs in that kind of a model? You have a director and a producer who know the brand, who can take the brief, who can turn it around, who understand it, who are very passionate about your brand, right? It's a vested interest. But what are the watch-outs for your advice to producers in terms of what are the watch-outs to do this kind of direct client work?
Look, I haven't really worked with directors and producers directly, in the sense given a brief to them and they've come back. I haven't done it yet, so I can't say what the watch-outs are. I certainly feel that there is a lot of merit in big brands, and maybe we can talk about big brands and my general grouse with digital, which I'll talk about.
Oh, I love that subject.
And I'll talk about digital. But there is a lot of merit in having directors who it brings back in some ways the fact that I find agencies kind of lots of I also it's a model that agencies sort out lots of attrition, lots of people coming and going. So there is a lot of merit in directors. So a lot of the work we did on Surf, a lot of the work we did on Brook Bond, what we're now doing on Goodnight. There are a few directors who we've kind of continuously making. I do see this as a trend in big brands. And I know Prasoon's done all the work on Pidlite, and look at that brand, look at where it's come to, right? So I think there is a certain merit in continuity of directors and producers. I don't know what the downsides are of directly briefing a director. I haven't done it before.
Give it a try. I'll ask you in a couple of months. I have to go there. I just have to go there. Can we have a very quick show of hands? This is so fun for me. How many people here have been receiving briefs? How many producers here have been receiving briefs which are give us 120 seconder, 6 15 seconders, 15 5 seconders, and oh my god, so I'm not entirely.
You missed ratios 9/16.
I want 9/16. I want absolutely. Okay, settle down, guys. We've found a champion. I feel your pain. Sudhir, I don't get it. I've been a brand manager back in the day, but that apart, I just don't get it. I don't understand the need for so many assets.
To build famous advertising, to build famous brands, you need famous advertising, right? Because that is the vehicle with which people remember your brand. To have famous advertising, if you have 6 pieces of advertising, they will remember none of it. Absolutely. So what we do, both when I was in Levers and now in GCPL, is make a big brand film, run it for a year or a year and a half in mass media, still predominantly, sorry guys, television in India, increasingly connected television in India, so YouTube on, and we can talk a little bit about how I feel about mobiles and marketing. But the vehicle for remembering your brand is the ad, and there is no way in which if you put 6 ads on TV, people remember your brand. They won't remember the ad, they won't remember the brand. So each one of these ads that for the Alzheimer's or whatever else I want to show, these are all ads that I don't allow any brand manager to run an ad for less than a year. If you're putting it, you make sure it's good, and then you run it for a year, and then you get the rewards after a year.
So the big ad is here to stay. According to Sudhir Sitapati, the big master brand campaign is here to stay.
We're
shooting this, right?
I certainly find a lot of value in it. We've put our money where our mouth is. 1,000 crores is not a small amount of money on big brand advertising. And I would bet, because I'm also quite a quantitative guy, so while instincts is fine, I constantly objectively measure. And I have always found big brand advertising run over long periods of each one of the ads that I'm really proud of. Even today, if I go to consumers, they will remember those ads. So I do feel that after this brief hiatus of digital anarchy, we will go back to big brands.
Amazing. YouTube and digital. Of course I need to talk about it. I still have to meet someone who doesn't want to skip ads and gets extremely pissed off at the brand that has unskippable ads. And you just said you want to talk about it. Say it.
No, I think there are 2 fundamental issues. So firstly, I have nothing for or against digital, right? It's just frankly a means to an end. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'll tell you the 2 essential issues with mobile phone marketing. In 2003 or 4, we did a piece of work on print advertising when print was still being done. What we realized was that a 10cc ad is nowhere near 1/6 the effectiveness of a 60cc ad. You know what a 60cc ad?
Yeah.
Well, most of you are old timers here. So 60cc ad we found was the kind of most effective. And one thing that I realized is that to build brands, size matters. You cannot build brands so there's a size impression that matters. Now we're doing a lot of work in GCPL with Karen Nelson Field studying all of this. So there's a critical screen size that matters for brand building. Second thing is when consumers lean in or lean out in their mode, it makes a difference to brand building. So if you're sitting and watching a soap and leaning back, the impact of the brand is very different from when you're searching to do something else and a brand interrupts you.
Correct.
So these two fundamental principles, if you apply, so nothing wrong with digital, right? Like we spend a lot of money on YouTube connected TV because the screen is good and most of what people are watching on YouTube is frankly reruns of soaps or music videos. This is broadly what they're watching. It's lean back.
Yeah.
So this is my general view on digital. We're getting carried away by all sorts of stuff, and I have a lot of data which kind of measures the fact that when you look at salience, the only measure that I look at actually is salience. Is the brand most famous? If you talk about a soap and say, give me the top 3 soaps, what do they say? If you talk about household insecticide where they're working now, what do they say of the top 3? And that's the measure of salience. And we have consistently found that if you use too small a screen and you irritate consumers when they're not in a mood to watch ads, they don't remember your brand.
And it's almost negative. You know,
I don't know if it's negative or not, but it certainly doesn't work in terms of return on investment when you're forcing people to watch things at a moment that they don't want to watch it.
So let's tune out of this bullshit. You've got a nice big ad. You want to show us classic high salience advertising?
Yeah, I mean, we only do both, whatever I have to show you is high salience advertising. I mean, you talked to me about Lightbox, and this is what maybe I'll show you one of the Goodnight ads we've just done a year ago. I think it's done quite well for the brand. And often actually, a famous ad becomes famous only in hindsight. It's a series of consistent campaigns built over 5 or 7 years that makes the first ad famous.
True.
Brand communication idea, it's only two ads down of trying dads. It's about baby sleep is the proposition, and our advertising idea is dads who try. And the first ad we did was a dad who tried, but this was an ad which I liked really a lot because it was a dad who tried and failed to put the kid to sleep. So it's both a big brand, but it's also the merits of creativity being very close to the business. If there are lots of intermediaries between creativity and business outcomes, then it can get bureaucratic. We were doing a lot of Goodnight advertising about killing mosquitoes, this, that, and the other. Simple metaphor of baby sleeping is the most important time, and it's also about safety of the. So you just sort of get a really deep insight to a big brand. We spent 60 crores advertising it. That's what we spent. That's roughly the amount of money we spend on an ad before taking it off air, and it's worked wonders for the brand.
Oh, fabulous. Sudhir, I'm just trying to draw, I am drawing a parallel. It's the first part you showed, it's something that a lot of people shared. My mom sent to me, right? And this spot as well, right? It's a relevant subject. It's a subject we've been thinking and talking about for a while. I think there are a lot of directors here who are trying to do something about it. Hard data shows it's more or less, I don't know, please correct me if I'm wrong, I'd love to get this right. The hard data shows it's roughly 70% plus decision making on what brand to buy at home is being made by women, right? It's documented, right? Your former organization, Unilever, I think identified this a lot earlier on. And therefore, we saw a huge rise in the number of women brand managers, right? We're in 2024, and I'm struggling with a proposition, and I'm not the only one. I'm struggling with a proposition. Why are there not enough women directing commercials, right? Why are there not enough films that women directors are being given out on an absolutely equal footing? And 4 or 5 years ago, it would be valid to say that there weren't enough women directors, right? But I think a lot of producers and a lot of directors here have fostered more women directors to come in. I think the big question that I have for you is, it's a business proposition here, you know. Women can possibly sell better to women. It's a business case study. The economics are present. They're extremely talented, as talented, if not more. Vinil is not gonna like this, but you know, they are very talented. So, what's the roadblock? Why are there not enough brand managers giving films to women directors?
I don't know. I mean, Khalil, this is a question I don't have an answer to, honestly. I don't even look at a lot of these things in a gendered sense. I think there are sensitive directors and there are not so sensitive directors. I haven't had that much experience, and I'll show you a film which we did together, but I do find slightly older directors a little bit more mature in certain kind of handling of films than younger directors. I do find certain films, you know, and now I don't do much of it, but when I did, I would say I'd want an older or a younger one. I have to introspect on why I haven't asked the question. I've only worked with one women director on one blockbuster film, and I did find that PPM different. Now, I don't know if it was because of Gauri or because of the woman. I can't judge that. She's the only one I worked with in a couple of films. I did find the conversation a bit softer, a bit more sensitive. And maybe we can show the film that we did,
Sure.
the Nord film. It was a cheeky film, but I mean, I found something different there, but I'm not able to judge if it's a woman thing or if it was a Gauri thing. I mean, I do want to say, yeah, so maybe we can just see that.
No, go for it. Finish your thought, Sudhir, please.
No, I mean, I you know, like, you know, this girl, you guys, you know, she's won the Cannes Film Award this year.
Payal
Kapadia. I knew her really well. In fact, I'd introduced her to Shivi. So when she was 10, 15 years ago, she worked as a assistant to Shivi as a. I think the issue, and you know, and frankly, from there she went to FTII and she sort of made it. I do find, forget about film directors, I don't find enough women coming in even at more junior levels because we don't brief women, men, none of that, right? So when we look at gender in our own organization, the question is not the gender at the apex of the pyramid, it is the women at the base of the pyramid. And what Payal's done and what she's achieved, she wouldn't have done if she wanted assisting Shivi. I mean, you know. So maybe the question to ask is, why aren't there more women who come into the room, who have conversations, who speak up at more junior levels? Is perhaps the question that the industry should ask. But
No, that's a no. That's a no.
But this is a film, I really loved it. I really liked it. Gauri made it for us. It was certainly different from what I had kind of seen in the past. And Gauri, you know, lighting, and you were there, like, you know, she had set up, and you guys may or may not have noticed. Actually, one of the things about great films is if it's there and you still don't notice it, it creates the ambience, you know, these erotic kind of paintings in Karan Johar's house. So that there, you know, so most people don't notice it, but it creates an erotic element to it. So anyway, I don't know if it's a question on women, but fun film.
But Sudhir, very nice note, and I think there's been a lot of conversation in little groups about how, you know, small things. You see more women in PPMs. You know, they're part of the team. You have, it's going to be a journey. Yeah. Sudhir, I mean, for a very obvious reasons, it brings me to a question, which is, you know, you have a lot of producers, directors who have built iconic commercials, who have made iconic commercials for you, and have sort of been collaborators, right? Some of them one-off, some of them long-term collaborators for whatever reason. Well, with the changing landscape, what do you think is missing? What do you think is an area where you feel producers and directors can really step in? And I mean, I'll give you an example. I think something that we have been hearing a lot, and in fact, a few minutes ago from Raj, having a vested interest in the idea, and then even more recently from you saying, I want to work with people who are passionate, right? Apart from that, what do you see producers bringing to the table to be more collaborative brand builders?
May not quite fully answer the question the way you asked it, but let me tell you what things I look for from producers and directors.
Yeah.
As a kind of response to, you see, the first thing I look for in the conversation, as I already said, is the characterization. I genuinely look for, because if you sort that out, the PPM is over. You don't have to have a conversation on anything else anymore. There are directors who think characters, and then there are directors who think sets and visuals, and so that's definitely something I personally look for, because every film is meant to build an emotion. There is no film. It can be erotic, it can be funny, it can be, but it builds a film. So there's a characterization. The second thing that I often look for in a film, and quite often, lots of teams, recently also we made a film where after the PPM we had paid some money, and then we said, I don't want to do this film, and then we made a film which was really nice afterwards. Is something about a film excites the director. I've seen in every film the director or the producer get excited about something in the film. That something that they get excited about has to be deeply intertwined with the brand. If it is a visual vampire which is away from the brand, that film bombs.
Yeah.
So that is something I'm for really, really cautious. See, and the brand moment is never the product freight. And maybe I'll show you a film which I kind of realized. This product freight is complete bullshit. No consumer I have met in my life has ever remembered a product freight film. Nothing. So your brand idea, like in the Goodnight film, the brand idea of a sleeping baby is the metaphor for protection from mosquitoes. The sleeping baby's sleep has to be the high point of the film. If that's not the high point of the film, where he says can't say goodnight, but he switches it on and says goodnight, then you're in trouble. So I would only urge the question, and I know the kind of conversations you have with lots of marketing folk, product freight window, and how many seconds the brand should be there, and how big should the logo be there. The real fundamental question is, what's the brand's role in the consumer's life? Is that central to the story of the film? If it's not central to the story of the film, then you're in trouble. Or if the director thinks that what is the central part of the film doesn't have anything to do with the brand, you may have a film that people loves, but certainly from our point of view, that doesn't work. So I think great films really have to get that. In the Alzheimer's film, whatever films I've shown here, all of them have it. The Karan Johar film, the soup is at the heart of the film. There's no product freight window, how the really tomatoes come, or none of that happens, right? Or in the Alzheimer's film, it's the cup of tea that gets the two of them together. So that's the one thing that I would say to all of you guys, is branding is not about product freight windows. Branding is not about the brand. Branding is about the brand idea. So if those two marry, then you don't have any conflict.
Yeah, I see a lot of nodding faces, some silent claps, etc. Amazing. What a breath of fresh air. Let me take a sip. Sudhir, it's sort of wrong timing, but right question. Everybody is going to get a little perked up, and so it's nice. There's been a lot of talk about, budgets are very high, and producers send these absurd budgets, and we want to slash budgets. We want to make films for cheaper. There are so many people who can do it for cheaper. The whole digital conversation, etc., right? I'm saying, to hell with all of that. A simple, straightforward question. Will you make big ads? Where will you spend money? Where do you, Sudhir, Sitapati, Godrej consumers, where do you want to spend money?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, the thing on big ads goes back to one of your earlier questions. If you see, firstly, consumers don't see your advertising budget that you spend on production.
Oh,
They
so
s-
true.
They see your GRPs, right? So
Yeah.
I am quite strict about the fact that we shouldn't spend more than 10% of what we air making films. That's step number one, right? That's important. But if you're going to make a film which is going to run for a year and spend 60 crores, then even 5% of that budget, which is the kind of mental limit I have is 10%, is 3 crores. So I would rather make fewer, bigger brand films than make lots of kind of low cost films and kind of proliferate. So if you go back to the thing that big brands matter, big brand films will matter, there is a massive difference, by the way. There's a massive difference between a great director and a good director. There's no question about it in terms of value addition. You have to gear your business model in a way that you spend a lot of money on the big budget film and therefore you get a big budget director. So I don't think, by the way, and I don't think in India in particular, see, India is a story culture. It's not a visual culture. It's not an art. I worked in the UK, which is why I didn't want to go back there. But that's an art culture. You know, they see pictures, they see visuals. So in India, big budgets I have generally found spent on big sets, consumers don't value it much. But directors who can get emotions and who are kind of really sensitive to kind of the human condition, that film transforms. And that is worth paying a hell of a lot of money for. So I know there are masters in this room, some of you are young, but if you can that's where I feel like if you can crack it, if you can really get to making people laugh, people cry, it's worth a lot of money for us.
As an industry stalwart and not CEO and managing director of Godrej Consumers, but an observer, an author, chairman of CII, etc. Right? What are your concerns?
Not a concern, but storytelling is eternal. It is not the main issue is getting caught up in the fads of the day. Human emotions are eternal. There's nothing new about it. There's nothing that's going to change. Nothing has changed in the past. Mediums may change, etc., etc. So I would say grasp the fundamentals. Don't grasp the medium. Grasp the basic fundamental message. So that's the only kind of thing is don't get carried away by digital. Don't get carried away by lots of clever things. Get to the heart of the matter. That's going to be timeless. It's also going to make a lot of money for guys who understand that.
Celebrity endorsements, are they still going to be good in like 2-3 years? Are they going to be big in this country?
I mean, the days of using celebrities for the sake of using celebrities is over because it's a commodity now. But if you kind of use celebrities strategically, then it's not. Strategically means having a fundamental role in your brand idea. It's not, but yeah, I mean, the broad point is celebrities are a crutch. I mean, it's better to make advertising without celebrities.
Personal or professional thing that you really celebrate?
Oh dear. So I was just telling.
Forget about professional, actually say personal. What was the last personal thing that you really celebrated?
Oh no. It tells me what a terrible life I have. I'm a kind of really pretty sourpuss kind of guy. We were just discussing in the bar that like how I hate birthdays or somebody's birthdays. So I just hate it, and I'm not much of a celebratory person. I'm afraid I'm a slightly depressive kind of guy.
Ooh, okay. Sudhir, last question of the night.
Okay.
Sudhir the husband, Sudhir the dad, Sudhir the CEO, Sudhir the guy who's meeting in bars and meeting on stage. What? Sudhir the person on his own, what does he do that makes him really happy?
This answer changes every week, but this week I have a 5-year-old son, and
What's his name?
Kabir. And all this while, his mother was his favorite person, and for the last week, I suspect I've become his favorite person. That has made me really happy.
Oh, that's amazing. And you're going to focus on this. It feels good to be to be the more favorite one.
Well,
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, Sudhir Sitapati.
Thank you so much. That was fun. I can't believe you